Okay, so some tactics for dealing with problem children in the dojo. Number one, no matter who the children are, structure and discipline. There has to be boundaries. Absolutely has to be. You can allow them a certain amount of leeway with poor behaviour on the understanding that they're coming from homes where they may not have good role models, and it's not necessarily their fault that they're poorly behaved. But I've never met a student, adult or child, who doesn't thrive, or at least doesn't work better in a very structured environment. That's one of the things about a traditional Japanese style dojo. I've been to classes where people just kind of stand around and their hands behind their backs, and they call the instructor Fred or Bob or whatever, and you know, it's all very informal, it's all lovely, but you know, and then they kind of chat about the classes, and everything's a negotiation, and they're all best mates, and the honest truth is that doesn't create a very good environment for learning. And if you come from one of those clubs, then all well and good, but the fact is that for example, if people go to the gym, they go to the gym because they don't have the discipline to do so at home. They go to the gym because it's a formal structure where they go through the exercises that they need to accomplish their fitness goals. And likewise in a class, you know, if everybody's just pally and just, you know, you never say no to anybody, and you let the kids wander around or mess about too much, then you have a much harder time of it, and they really do poorly in that system. They need to understand what the rules are, what the ground rules are, exactly how far they can go. So for example, in my class the other day, a student called me by my first name, and I let it go because it doesn't bother me particularly, even though the system is to call me sensei, and that structure is there to create a sense of structure. That system excuse me, I'm mixing my words up here, but you know what I mean, that policy of calling me sensei is there to reinforce a sense of structure for them. It doesn't freak me out if they call me by first name, even the kids. I ask them to call me sensei, and I generally insist upon it, but I don't get all upset if they forget themselves. However, another young student in the class got a bit playful the other day and kicked me up the bottom, and I won't allow that, because I think that's overstepping the boundaries of respect for the sensei. Likewise, I won't allow troubled kids to start throwing tantrums. The second it starts, I'm going to physically pick them up if needs be, and take them out of the class. And a word of warning here: if you do ever need to take problem kids out of the class, be sure to grab their parents or another trusted adult witness with you. Never just take them outside, because all they need to do is throw themselves on the floor and hit something, you know, hit their head on the floor, or have a tantrum. And you know, there are kids, female students actually, who have cried abuse of senseis who showed strong discipline to them. So you need to be cautious of that. And while I'm thinking of it, incidentally, if you have kids who ever need to be showed where the toilets are, or they're very young and need to be escorted, I strongly recommend that you send a female sensei or a female student, or even a female parent that you trust, to do that duty. If you're a guy, I very much recommend that you don't escort your kids to the toilet at all, just to cover yourselves. So structure is the first thing. So structure means that they call you sensei. Structure means that they don't just stand casually around. They don't get too excited before class. We have quite a structured environment anyway, where they stand in lines and they don't just slouch around on the floor. If your students tend to be those, you know, quite often these problem kids tend to be the kind of kids you just lay around on the floor, you know, when you're talking they'll sit down, and I don't really allow that to go too far either, because I don't think that sets the right tone in the dojo of work, or they'll try and make silly noises when you're talking, or when you're in mokuso or whatever. Again, I won't allow that. I'm very strong on that, and if needs be, I give them press-ups or sit-ups, or send them in the corner or whatever. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can deal with children who are troublesome, and you will have to play by ear which works for your children. For example, personal attention may be what they need. They could be troublesome because they're just trying to get attention. And if you give them the personal attention of a sensei or a senpai, they may thrive on that and be well behaved and really improve. On the other hand, they may just be playing up because they want attention, but they don't want to train under attention, they just want the attention on them, in which case what you need to do is deny them attention. You don't shout at them, you don't tell them off, you don't send them in the corner, you just ignore them completely. Now if they do, sometimes what they'll do is become a bit histrionic when they see that their misbehaviour is not getting them the desired attention. They may start crying or screaming or even having full-on tantrums, and if that happens, then I will physically escort them from the class where they can't be heard, and have a parent go with them, obviously, and just leave them outside, and then they can carry on to their heart's content with no attention out there completely. So sometimes to starve them of attention, you have to put them in a corner and make them turn to the back, so they're not part of anything, they're not receiving any feedback. Sometimes they deserve attention, you know. Sometimes they want to give you their best, but they need a bit of personal attention to get it, you know. Some kids don't learn well in a multi-student class environment. They just need that personal attention so that the points can be made to them, so that they can be corrected as they go, and some children are not very good at self-correcting. Then there are other children who are what's known as kinesthetic learners, and that means that they need to be physically positioned. That they're not well, it's not they're stupid, but they learn more easily physically. So if you can afford an assistant or a senpai or a high graded student to spend some time with them, or stand next to them as they learn, they may need to be physically positioned as you teach them, and that may be one way that they will learn. You know, I've met so many students over the years who just have no sense of what their body's doing. It's called proprioception, the knowledge, the sense of where your body parts are, and quite often they're blind to how poor their karate is. You know, you might say push your knees out, and their knees are almost knocking together, and they think their knees are out. So you may need to physically go up and position these students, or get somebody else to give them a bit of extra attention. Now, with some of the more intelligent students, or even, you know, as long as they're not completely thick, you might find that reasoning with them, and I don't mean bargaining, I don't mean begging them to behave, I mean reasoning. For example, you might say something like, how do you think a winner would behave? Do you want to be a black belt? What's good about being a black belt? Do you think that your behaviour is the same behaviour that a black belt would show? Okay, well then what can you do to improve your behaviour? How do you think that you could train in a way that's more like a black belt? So you're reasoning with them. Now I think that can work very well, but generally I find that to be quite a short-term remedy, because often kids don't have a long-term memory from cause and effect, so they misbehave now and they don't connect that to the long-term goals they're trying to pursue. Now, you can use the reminder of their grades, their next grades, but the problem with that is that if they don't grade very quickly, or they don't grade when expected, that can really backfire. So that's the motivational tool I feel that has to be used very sparingly and very carefully. Not only that, but it's fine to offer rewards. You know, Sensei Jason, that's my instructor, he said that nothing is so unfair as the equal treatment of unequals. So you don't treat all of your students the same in the dojo. However, the students do expect to be all treated equally fairly. So you can't have your problem student whizzing through the grades just to keep them interested, and everybody else is working 5 times as hard, and they lose faith in the system. So you have to be very, very careful here to use an even hand, and this is where I say sometimes it's better to lose 1 student than it is to lose 10. You know, that you have 1 student who you couldn't motivate and they leave. And to be honest, these problem students, they don't stick around. They really don't. Very, very few of them last more than a year or 2, and you know, the number of them that reach black belt I could count on the fingers of one hand. You know, so it's not worth sacrificing your good students, your committed students from good families for the sake of trying to bring these troubled students along. That they have greater problems than succeeding in karate, and most of it happens at home, I'm afraid. So you can use certain rewards that are agreed with the parents. Like I agreed to buy one of my students a set of nunchuckers if he foam safety nunchuckers if he behaved well at school for 3 months, and he trained 3 weeks out of 4, and he trained hard when he was there, and when he achieved that, I bought him what I promised, and that changed his behaviour for a while. But unfortunately, for various reasons, the mother stopped ringing him, and he got out of the habit. So the benefits were lost, and that kind of makes my point, really. Now, something else that can really cause kids to misbehave is when they cease to believe in the process, the value of the training. Now, especially if you have a syllabus with kids which is very much based around basics and kata to get them through their grades, it can be all too easy for them to lose sight of the greater benefits that they get in the self-discipline and the fitness and the progress towards black belt, especially if it takes a year or 2 between grades, which can easily happen when they're very young, or even 7, 8, 9. I do find that a problem. So to be honest, what I have found is the best solution to kids who are progressing slowly is to encourage them to train more often. And that brings me on to another point with problem students. Very often the class environment doesn't give them, they can't gain traction because they can't understand in a class environment. And with those students, especially if your style permits you to do this, or if it's your own club, or even if you're an instructor for GKR and you're just feeling charitable, excuse me, I strongly recommend private lessons. 1, 2, 3 hours of private time can be equivalent to 20 or 30 classes in a public class, and will give them the traction so that they're keeping up with their peers or even overtaking them.